Hi, everybody. My name is Leah. I'm the Vice President of Marketing over at the Commemorative Air Force Headquarters, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to every episode of CAF Warbird Tube. And I'm very excited to say this is our 200th episode. So we thought we would take a look back at some of the episodes we've done so far and give you kind of some insight as to how CAF Warbird Tube came to be. I'm here with our wonderful host, Steve Buss, who has been doing CAF Warbird Tube since 2020. So I'm going to start before 2020, where we actually began the idea of CAF Warbird Tube was during COVID. We didn't have any air shows, we couldn't have any events, and we realized people were getting kind of board, so we decided to do a webinar series.
All right, we'd like to welcome all of you here for our Mission to Normandy webinar from the Commemorative Air Force. We'll give everybody just another minute to make sure they're logged in, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
It was first called the CAF Educational Webinar Series, and it was very webinar oriented. And like most people at the start of COVID, we were not that tech savvy. So some of the original episodes of CAF Warbird Tube were actually kind of rough. However, we had a wonderful time doing it. It was a lot of fun for us to do, and we heard from people it was a lot of fun for them to watch. So we decided we were going to keep doing it and, you know, increase our publications of promoting CAF Warbird Tube in those early years. So at the point where we got a pretty large audience, we were getting about 100, 150 people, I thought maybe we should try and get a professional host. And so that's exactly what we did. And when I thought, okay, who's going to be the best person to host this, there was no other person. It was Steve Buss would be the best and only person that could host this show.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar. My name is Steve Buss, and in just a moment, we're going to introduce our guests from the CAF Lake Superior Squadron, who will talk about the restoration of the CAF's PBY Catalina.
I've known Steve for many, many years, and he is as engaging as he appears to you on the show. I mean, he's great. He's a lot of fun, and he's been around for a while in aviation. So that makes him an excellent and the only candidate to be the host of the show. So Steve, we're so grateful to have you on these episodes.
Well, it's great to be a part of it. Commemorative Air Force has been a part of my aviation sphere since 1980, and I've always admired the group and admired all the volunteers and the aircraft that you take touring around the country. So it's been an honor to be able to do this for almost 5 years now.
Yeah, and we started, I mean, some of the idea behind the show was to create kind of a digital library, a history of each of the CAF aircraft. That was part of the idea, was to capture these stories, because the CAF, having been around since 1957, there's a lot of photos and cassette tapes and, and documents that we have, and you know, we could really take the rest of our lives to try and digitize this, and we are, but I thought, you know, why not use this opportunity to jump in and just start it from scratch, just digitizing it. So the first few episodes you did, Steve, I think were for 12 Planes of Christmas, the aircraft.
Right, yeah, we started out with the PBY from the Lake Superior Squadron. We did the TBM from Rocky Mountain. I think those are the first two that we did that were official Warbird Tube shows. And then, yeah, we worked into the 12 Planes of Christmas. And as we started going through some of the aircraft, some of the other kind of stories of either CAF or World War II started popping up. So we expanded our horizons a little bit and a little bit more. But you know, deep down, we're still all about airplanes and people.
Yeah, and I think we noticed too, especially in the beginning, because people weren't quite sure what we were doing or how to prepare, you know, no one except for you is really a professional performer. You know, most people that are on the show are, you know, just, you know, trying to figure things out and do stuff that they're not used to doing quite as public as these episodes are. And to help with that, we have an amazing staffer named Blaine Seaboalt, who does the behind the scenes, let me help walk you through the process, sound check, camera check, all that good stuff before people get on the show now, which has been really helpful.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to work with him, and I hope we can keep Blaine around for many years to come, because he comes out of a TV background as well. So he knows the technical end, what goes into a good show, and helps guide me along as we're putting the shows together. And I guess not only at Warbird Tube, but in a lot of the interviews that I've done throughout my career, I always have kind of taken the philosophy that I want to make it easy for the person to tell their story, whatever that story is, to make them comfortable, maybe have some questions to prod them along. But at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about the story that the person has to tell. And sometimes you got to kind of pull some things out. But other times, once you get them rolling, they just naturally open up and tell the story. And those are the shows that really make us smile when we're done on Wednesday nights, and then we usually have a little text chain going, and it's a great show. Wow, that was great energy or whatever. And then the other aspect that this medium brings us is the ability to bring the audience in and have them ask questions or make comments and kind of become part of it. And I've noticed, especially in the last probably year or so, I think our audience is over their shyness. They're not afraid to type something in the comment box or ask a question, because they know we'll try to work it in. But it also helps to shape the way the show goes, because I'll admit it, there are times when I have sort of an idea of where I think the show is going to go, but then the audience helps move it somewhere else, which is even better than what I had envisioned.
Yeah, I love that we have that audience participation, because the comments you wouldn't believe, you know, sometimes we don't get to them during the show, and so we always go back and read them afterwards, but so many of them are from people that knew that their relative was engaged in some way, either with the aircraft or had been involved in that conflict or had something to do with the subject. So they decided to tune in, and they ended up with such a better understanding of what their relative had gone through. You know, a lot of times, especially, you know, combat veterans, they don't talk about their service as much as we would have hoped, you know, so we could capture that firsthand experience. But these shows, I think, have helped a lot of people get in touch with their relatives and get, you know, really truly understand what some of these guys and girls went through during the war years.
Absolutely. And we've explored some topics that might be not on the in the mainstream. There was one program we just called Surviving Hitler.
In this memoir, now your mom is 92 years old, but why did she decide to write this story now? What was the impetus that brought her to share her story today?
Well, that's a question we get all the time. And she started writing the story down about 4 years ago when she was 88. And at that time, you know, she had shared the story with many groups over the course of her life.
And it was a show that I thought was going to go one way, and then got very, very emotional and very, very philosophic, but yet learned a lot from our guest. And again, those are the stories that we help to tell and capture and preserve.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I love it when we have these really unique stories that, you know, and we truly never know which ones the audience is going to, you know, love.
Right.
There's some episodes that we've had, for instance, when we did the nose art episode.
Several hundred other aircraft at Walnut Ridge were not included in this salvage sale. And operations began up until February 2nd, 1948. And on that date, the Texas Railway Equipment Company stated that all of the aircraft had been scrapped. So how does that get us to the CAF Nose Art collection? This is the point in the story where our hero, Minot Pratt Jr., comes in. He was the general manager for the Walnut Ridge operations and an employee of the Texas Railway Equipment Company. Well, as he was watching these airplanes get scrapped, he noticed all of the nose art. And some of the pieces really appealed to him. So he would have his crews go to the airplane before it was pushed into the smelter and literally cut the nose art off the airplane.
I was not quite sure. I love it, you love it, but we weren't quite sure how the aviation audience was going to take it. But as it turns out, people really loved that episode. People started watching all over the world, probably because they didn't know that the CAF had the collection of nose art.
Yeah, I can't, it's on my list of things to do, and that is to visit the new display and take people through that and then tell the rest of the story. We only told half the story of the nose art. We could only get in like 17 or 18 pieces in the hour that we had, and there's still another half of the collection that we need to discuss.
Yeah, and then there's some episodes where I really want people to watch them. I keep thinking, like, let's repackage them and get them out there. The ones that come to mind, we did an episode with a professor in Texas, at Texas Tech actually, who is a Star Wars professor, and she talked about where World War II history shows up in the movie Star Wars, and it was fascinating. I mean, I was fascinated by it, and not enough people have watched that show. So there's a couple of hidden gems like that I really would love for people to go and visit. That's that one, and another one that was really interesting was our visit to the Atomic Museum, the Atomic episode that we did. That was also incredibly fascinating.
And it's one of those things. If you can figure out the YouTube algorithm, please let us know. And then there are other stories. The other end of the spectrum is the one that we did on the mosquito not too long ago, which is thousands and thousands of views.
The Mosquito is a fabulous aircraft, and since I'm, for my sins, the chief engineering officer of the People's Mosquito, we're actually building one of these fine birds. It's my delight to tell you all about it.
And again, that one just took off worldwide. And why? No idea, but it did.
One of the things I like best about CAF Warbird Tube is the incredible breadth of stories that are told. There's some great historians that tell some great stories that really bring the history that CAF preserves and the history behind the fleet, really brings it to life.
So what are a few of your favorite moments that you can think of that we've had so far?
Well, that's like asking what's your favorite kid.
I asked it first.
I think you might ask that question. And it was just kind of reminiscing about the last 200 episodes. Anytime we have Brad Pilgrim on, it's always a favorite of mine because I could listen to him talk for days on end. First of all, I love his Texas drawl, but he knows so much about the history of CAF.
Got the airplane going. The engine project was led by John Agather, one of the sons of Vic and Fifi Agather. And John managed all the money and got all this done. And we got that airplane flying and flew again. And we're still flying it.
Yeah.
And the engines we have put more hours on that airplane in the last 10 years than we did in the previous 45 years of owning it. That is how good these engines are. And you still have problems with them. We lose them once in a while and cylinders and stuff like that because they're round engines. It's going to happen. But we could not operate this airplane today with those old engines. We just couldn't have done it.
That's the history series that we did. Those are all favorites. When he took the ride in the airplane, he went over to England and got the ride in the Messerschmitt. That's a favorite, So Chris Kolakowski from the Wisconsin Veterans Museum. He's been a frequent guest as well, and he just has this enormous depth of knowledge of history and can relate it to the audience without, making it too technical. But all the different folks we've talked to, especially in our units, when they start talking about their airplane or their airplanes, and that passion comes out, and you realize, these people are volunteers. They have a real life outside of CAF, but yet they've chosen to make CAF and those airplanes, those units, a big part of their life. And listening to them, talk about their airplanes, going out on tour, is just fantastic.
Yeah, I usually tell people, don't worry. If you know the topic, once you get going, you're gonna be fine. You'll keep talking about it. You're the guru in your field. That's why we asked you to be on the show.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of fun to see people share their passion, and then the audience and the comments that we get back, it's very well received.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorite Warbird Tube stories, we had a woman on, Eddie Zippler, as she wrote a book about her mother's experience in the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, a lot of the people, we don't know them very well. We think they'll be a good fit, but sometimes don't talk to them really extensively until right before the show starts. And I remember with Eddie, she started, putting her presentation in order, and she was showing these pictures of her grandchildren, and I thought, oh dear, what are we going to be in for this episode? And she takes us through the story kind of logistically, but also emotionally. Mm-hmm. And I'll get choked up about it now. At the end, when she shows those photos, you realize how important it would have been to people whose lives were impacted by the Holocaust to have their own photos. Mm-hmm. Those personal mementos, those things were lost for a generation, and they can never be recaptured again. And so she points out to her, photos of her family are the most precious things. They just cannot be replaced. And but it was an incredible way to make that point, was to take us through, through that journey that her mom had.
Warbird Tube is important because it gives the chance to get this organization's story told and preserved in a digital format, hopefully in a way that will be of interest to people long into the future.
Another episode that I thought was really fascinating was the Ploesti raid episode.
Tidal Wave was a military operation to achieve a political goal. And that's very important. It was a political mission, obviously operated by the military. Also, it's important to understand, and I'm going to lay out the information here for you as we go along, that the 8th Air Force bomb groups were successful. The 9th Air Force bomb groups failed.
And it started off, very kind of, educational, very... like you were learning from a book, a teacher was giving a lesson, essentially, is how it started. But as he got more and more into it, my jaw was dropping more and more. We were texting like, holy cow, this isn't sick. There were so many moments where it was like, are you kidding me with this? The buildup was incredible for that show. So another interesting thing to call out would be, we've had some celebrities on the show, or celebrities in our world, at least, which has been really exciting. I know you get to talk to celebrities quite a bit, as when you do announcing for EAA or Venture every summer.
I've been lucky to interview people like Dick Cole and CQ Brown, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but also other interesting people with great stories to share. Aviation has opened up so many doors for me, and there are so many topics still left to cover. Now, whether at an air show like EIA, CAF events, or other shows that I've been a part of, airplane people are simply the best. Plus, where else could I have ever met and become friends with General Chuck Yeager and his wife Victoria?
Yes, so we had Adam Makos was on our show.
Adam.
Yeah, he is an author, and he did, he's written several really good books, but we had him on the show when the movie Devotion came out about the Corsair. So we were lucky to have him on the show for that. And I have a feeling that was a big hit, that show. So I have a feeling we'll see more of Adam Makos in his books put to life, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, and he was really great to have on the show.
Certainly was. Also, Lucky Luckadoo from the Bloody 100th. That was actually an interview that we recorded at the Aviation Discovery Fest in Dallas, and then repackaged, put back together. He's just an incredible person to talk to. We've had the honor of talking to him a couple of times, but at least we have one that's on video, which is great.
What was it like to land after that final mission and just step out of the airplane the last time? Did you just, when you landed, stopped, engine stopped, did you jump out right away, or did you take a minute and just think about what had happened?
Well, it was stark. It was a tremendous relief, and I couldn't believe that I had actually survived with the Bloody 100th Bomb Group.
One other person who was actually pre-Warbird Tube, and that's Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. If you're familiar with that group, he is heavily into aviation, and we got to take a ride in the T-34, also at Dallas.
You want to you do want to go take the T-34 for a rip real quick, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, if you're up for it.
It's a little, it's windy. I know you can handle that, but
shame not to.
All right, everything looks good. Here we go. A little bit of a crossing from the right. Not much. Again, it sounds way meaner than it is. That's always a good sign, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Get a few selfies while we climb if you don't mind.
Still going up. There's the buffet. There we go. We probably get it to break a bit more than that.
There you go. I like the rudder too. Good recovery. Forget the B-24. Let's put you in the Stearman. Clear to land 3-1 with a right brake at 1,600 feet. 6849 Charlie. Thank you. You heard the man.
Down we go.
There you go. Down we go.
And I hope we had the guy from Band of Brothers on recently. Yes.
I still can't believe, I have to pinch myself to say we actually did that. I think the biggest one for me was to actually run Currahee, to run that mountain that we see on the t-shirts, we see in the show. To do it with my brothers was something I would never, ever have thought I was going to do. To then take it back to actually be at Camp Toccoa doing our airborne training. It's like, you can't even write this stuff. It just was the most amazing experience. It was the beginning of something that we wanted to do, not for ourselves, but to make sure that we don't forget the men that we betrayed.
I have learned so much from the CAF Warbird Tube about the CAF and World War II history. The cool thing I find about Warbird Tube is the people, Leah, Steve, Blaine, Nathan, everybody that's given us history, Brad Pilgrim. It's just a cool organization.
So especially in the early years, everything was very live. Before we had an editor that could help us, clip out the parts we weren't so proud of. We just we live streamed all of the first few Warbird tubes, and some of the things that happened on live TV were just either hilarious or cringy, or variations in between.
Yeah. What was the group that we were done with the webinar and they signed off with 2 large glasses of wine?
Yes, I believe that was the Heart of America way. They did that. That was hilarious. And they were so nervous to be on the show too, and they ended up just doing a fabulous job.
They certainly did.
There was another episode that we had where there was a dog barking kind of in the background, and we're so used to hearing that now. It probably didn't faze the audience, but on screen it was a different thing. Things were thrown.
That was Aaron. I think that was Aaron Miller's show. She tossed a pencil at the top, try to get it to be quiet.
But it moved very quickly through the house, which I give a lot of credit to.
And come to think of it, until she actually tossed the pencil, I hadn't even heard the dog barking, and I was interested in what she was saying. I think the audience was probably wondering the same thing.
Sorry, my dogs are barking. So I give a lot of...
Yes, that was lightning hitting Brad's house was pretty hilarious. He is such a loyal, dedicated guest that the lightning hit his house, everything went dark, and we lost him. And we were about to say, sorry, there's a storm in the area. And he called back in on his phone to say lightning had hit his house. But that's Brad,
Gary Levitz of the Levitz Furniture Stores here in Dallas.
And just got a text from Brad, complete power failure because of a storm. So let's see, maybe Leah, if you could give him a call and maybe get him on the phone line, we can continue doing the narration here as he goes through some of these slides and understand more of what it took to bring that airplane back to life. And I hear some noise. Is that Brad? Are you back with us?
I'm back. We had lightning hit a transformer, and the entire neighborhood is black.
Well, goodness. So I've just been making up stories as we go along here.
Well, and it's great because I had his slideshow on my computer here in the studio. So even though we lost his camera and audio when he called back in, we just after a couple of minutes we just picked up from where it left off and kept right on going. And actually no damage to his house, but he was well at power for a little while. And then one of the things that's now into our standard briefing is, especially if people are using a laptop, to make sure that they don't leave the laptop in a position where you might get a weird shot. This is something that I think everybody learned in COVID, doing Zoom calls for work and everything else, is that you got to be careful of your background and where your camera's pointing.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. That was quite the show within a show for us.
And then one other good one is our friends from Lake Superior. They're restoring a PVY, and this is a long-term process. It's going to take a while, but someone asked them if they had thought about where they're going to get pilots for the airplane, and they said on the show, we hadn't really thought about that yet. So.
All right, so I kind of love this question. You seem to have a great rebuild crew. When it comes time to fly, do you have a flight crew to do the test flying? And will it be your squadron's pilots that fly her when she's airworthy?
Kevin?
Not me.
It was good.
Yeah, it is kind of funny to put people on the spot, but even though they're on the spot, I feel like I always say our audience is the right audience for you. It's a safe space. They're interested in what you have to say. And sometimes we hear back from audience members, especially on those restoration ones, that they're following the restoration project videos because they're restoring their own, and they're getting to learn, what the CAF units are doing and what some of these other warbird groups are doing to restore their aircraft. Because we like to share that information. It's very helpful. There aren't too many, not too many people doing it these days.
Very true. Leah, we're looking at the background in your office, background in my office, but maybe we can take. We've got some video kind of behind the scenes of what it looks like in the middle of a production, and it's pretty basic our production, but it still I think comes off looking rather professional at least. But you might be surprised what you see behind the scenes at Warbird Tube Studios.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's usually a lot going on each of our ends. Blaine is in Dallas and he's working on the technical side of things. I'm in Houston and I'm usually responding to people emailing because they're trying to get in or they can't watch it and they want to get the link for the show later. So that, I'm doing that in Houston, and you're up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin at command center.
Welcome to the Warbird Tube Studio, located in beautiful Oshkosh, Wisconsin. This is it. This is where the magic happens. A little bit of a workspace over here. One of my favorite models, the Supersonic Concorde. And of course, being a football fan, there's a Green Bay Packers signed football. Coming over to the business end of what we do here. This is what it looks like when I am sitting in the chair watching what's going on. So we have a Microsoft Surface that's down there on the left where I can use to monitor. The mirror image teleprompter, I use that to monitor the questions that you send in when you're watching the show. And then the main monitor to the right, which takes care of all of the slides that you see during the presentation. So this is the chair of command. Of course, got to have lights and all sorts of goodies that go with it. I do know that you probably want to know, maybe some of the things that are in the background that you see on Warbird Tube. Well, first of all, we've got a selection of 3 vintage aviation instruments that I've collected along the way at either flea markets or I think the Piper altitude indicator was actually given to me by a friend. We've got a Bell X1, which I don't know if you can see it or not, that is actually signed by Chuck Yeager. So I'm kind of proud of that. The flag, that is from my dad. He was an Army veteran, passed away several years ago, and I keep that in the studio. It's been in my office since his passing. Just reminds me of my heritage. Coming back around the other side, microphone, because I come out of a radio background. B-17, one of my favorite aircraft. Did some restoration work on EIA's B-17 years ago. And very, very proud of the work that went into that airplane. P-51 Mustang, always a favorite. The Hula Girl, well, 2 things. One, to remind me of Pearl Harbor and the Tora 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 group, and also because if you've ever looked at Diamond Lil and looked at the instrument panel, you know that there's a Hula Girl on the instrument panel. So it's just a little tribute to our friends from the B-29, B-24 squadron. And then this other thing, that's a Telly Award. Given to Video Productions, won that award for a production I did for EIA a number of years ago. So kind of proud of that. So that's a little behind the scenes look at what's inside the Warbird Tube studio. So thanks for joining us, and make sure you tune in to watch the real TV show.
Leah, we talked about some of our frequent guests, our favorite guests, but in the 200 episodes that we've done, we've also lost a few folks, guests of the show who have gone west. And we'd just like to take a minute and recognize some of those people.
I'm always, it's always sad to lose, especially, the veterans have been, they're up there in years, and we've had the privilege to interview a lot of them. A lot of the interviews haven't even been published yet. We're still kind of going through them, but I feel so lucky and grateful that we are able to capture their stories on video from, in their voice, because years from now when you read it, it's just not going to have the same impact as when they're telling the story in their own voice.
Congratulations, Warbird Tube, on 200 episodes. I look forward to a lot more.
So as we kind of wrap up our 200th episode, we're kind of look forward to, I don't know, the next 200, or at least next week's show. We have Chris Kolakowski on, who's going to talk about the Battle for Okinawa as we kind of recognize the 80th anniversary of that part of World War II. But as we do that, we continue looking forward. We want to say thank you to all of you who are loyal Warbird Tube fans. Leah, you get to interact with a lot of them every week throughout the chat.
Yeah, I do. It's wonderful. We love hearing from people. It lets us know that we're on the right track. I always think, look, if it feels good, it's probably right. But getting those emails and phone calls from people, and talking to people at air shows and events that come up to us and say, yeah, I tune in, whenever I can, or I watch you guys on YouTube all the time. It's great to get that feedback. And, as long as you guys keep watching, we'll keep on putting shows out there.
There you go. Well, and speaking of recognition, you got recognized at Wings Over Houston, right?
I did. I did, which was hilarious. I mean, we did the intro, it's one thing, but I'm certainly not an extrovert. But I did. I had a group of high schoolers come up to me and say, "Hey, you're the girl from Warbird Tube." I was like, "Wow, okay, yeah, that's true."
There you go. So, on the off chance that somebody is tuning in for the very first time, how can they go back and see all of our past episodes?
So we published every episode on YouTube that we've done so far. So you can go on our YouTube channel and you can go back and you can see tons of episodes. We also have a podcast channel now. So the audio from the shows gets uploaded and it's on iHeartRadio and it's on Apple Podcasts and all these other pretty much every channel. You can see it out there. So there's ways you can do it. And at least you say it at the end of every show, but if there's a topic people want to explore, we'd love to hear from you guys, because we have a lot of fun coming up with the ideas for shows, but it's always good to get some suggestions.
Oh, and especially because wherever you might be, there may be some aviation World War II story that you know about locally that we'd never know about unless you let us know and we can dig into it. So again, drop us a note. media@cafhq.org is the address. And again, like we say, closing out every show, if you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you click the bell and you'll get notifications when our new episodes are posted. So with that, until episode number 201, Leah, thank you for getting this all going and for asking me to be a part of it. I've certainly enjoyed the last 200 episodes, and as I said, looking forward to the next 200.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for doing such an excellent job facilitating the storytelling that we get to do at the Commemorative Air Force every day.